2019 is right around the corner, and if you're watching this in December, you can grab a Go Herping calendar. It's got pictures of my animals. It's free USA shipping, and I only got 100 made, and I won't be making any more. So if you want one, you can grab one before they go out of stock, if they do, at goherpingshop.com or the link below. This is Goldie, my male leopard gecko, and this is an unnamed female who's also deep in the shed, so she'll look better in future videos. But these two are adults, so they are pretty easy to sex. The first thing you should know is if you have a very young gecko, it may be a bit more hard to tell. So there's a couple things you're going to look for and where you're going to look. First off, you're going to check out the cloaca. Now, geckos are not a fan of being flipped over, so I usually just avoid doing that. And I used to put them over my head, but ever since my turtle Franklin peed in my mouth, I don't do that. So I found the best and easiest way to do it is put them on top of something glass or clear. Like I usually stick them in a 10-gallon, or just put it on a glass table, or something where the gecko can sit flat and you can see their cloaca, which is basically their 3-in-1 hole, as I've seen it called, because they poop, pee, and mate from it. The main two things you're going to be looking for are pores and bulges. If you notice a bulge, then it's possible that it's a male, but it's not necessarily 100% definitive, and it's harder if you don't have like multiple to compare. So by far the easiest way to tell is to look for pores. Pores also seem to show up earlier than the actual bulges under there. So if it's looking lumpy down there, I wouldn't automatically assume it is male. Females, on the other hand, are going to be flat and pore free with just about nothing to show for down there other than an actual hole. There should be some better vocabulary I can use other than like hole and bulge, but that's all I got. So as you can see, Goldie, my male, he just has these two pretty large, almost swollen lumps on the underside, kind of behind his cloaca, along with a V shape of those little tiny holes, while the female just has just about nothing. It's pretty flat. Still, you can see there are kind of like two separate markings on each side, but they really don't protrude out and don't actually swell or anything. But if your gecko is younger, they are probably all going to look pretty flat down there. For example, Goldie, my male leopard gecko, was sold to me as a temperature sex female, because when gecko eggs hatch, you can essentially choose if it's going to be male or female based on the temperature that you incubate the eggs at. You might have seen this with sea turtles, like a lot of people talk about it, where based on the temperature of the sand, the sea turtle will be male or female in the egg, and that's the same with them. So although he was temperature sex female, he kind of escaped the usual thing, and he was so young that you really couldn't tell. So he said just like over the next year, see if anything develops, and it did. I ended up with some pores. So again, if your gecko is just a couple months old, a couple weeks old, or even closer to a year old, there's a high chance that it's going to look like a female. If you aren't breeding, it really doesn't matter that much. But you can just wait a couple more months until they are pretty much full size, and then you can be 100% certain. However, we've had this, like I remember there was one very tiny leopard gecko we had. It was one that actually dropped his tail, so he looked even smaller. He dropped it before we acquired it, I should say. But he already had the pores, so we could already go ahead and sell it as a male. So that was pretty easy. And this is the technique you can use with a lot of different gecko species. The ones I've worked with, some like the day geckos and crested geckos and stuff, they are all just about the same. You just look for bulges and pores. So that's the goal for today. We are very frequently brought animals, and I've bought animals that are advertised as something different than they actually are because someone just incorrectly sexed it, or it was too young to sex properly, or somebody just made a guess and wanted to sell it. Keep in mind, females are generally worth more. So for like a normal leopard gecko, normal morph, it might just be like a $5 or $10 difference between the male or females. But when you get into more expensive species, this can be a much larger difference. So it doesn't hurt to go ahead and try and check it yourself if you can, to ensure you're not being scammed, or even if it's not on purpose, make sure it's correct. So just a quick guide, hopefully that helped. But I'm Alex, and thanks for watching.